1969 wasn't just the end of a decade. It was the sound of rock music cracking wide open. Psychedelia evolved, amplifiers got louder, guitars got meaner, and lyrics more defiant than ever.
I ain't seen nothing like him in any amusement hall.
From iconic stage moments to genre-defining records, these 10 tracks didn't just reflect the times, they reshaped them. Let's count down the rock anthems that made 1969 unforgettable. 10. Venus. Shocking blue before Sweden gave us ABBA and France discovered Daft Punk. The Netherlands had a rock export that exploded across the globe, and her name was Venus. Released in late 1969 by the Dutch band Shocking Blue, Venus fused garage rock grit with psychedelic swagger and Eastern flair. It was a strange but irresistible brew. Fuzzy guitars, flamenco-inspired riffs, and a pounding rhythm section that felt more like a marching army than a pop band. But the real lightning in the bottle, that voice. Mariska Veras, the band's striking frontwoman, was often compared to Grace Slick. But her operatic power and icy cool made her something entirely new. She didn't sing "I'm Your Venus," she declared it like a goddess with a Marshall stack behind her. Written by guitarist and founding member Robbie Van Leeuwen, the track originally appeared on their 1969 album At Home. But when Venus hit US airwaves in early 1970, it did something no Dutch band had ever done before. It shot straight to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. One minute they were playing in The Hague, the next they were headlining in Hollywood. Venus wasn't just a hit, it became a pop culture time capsule. It's been covered and sampled by dozens of artists, from Bananarama's 1986 dance pop revival, also a #1 hit in the US, to appearances in everything from Gillette commercials to Tarantino films. Shocking Blue's international success was short-lived, but for a brief moment, they proved that rock and roll was bigger than borders, and that sometimes the gods of rock smile on a band with the right hook, the right riff, and a front woman who sounds like she could command thunder. They came from The Hague. But with Venus, they ruled the universe, at least for 3 glorious minutes. 9. Down on the Corner, Creedence Clearwater Revival. In 1969, while most bands were arguing over concept albums and studio overdubs, Creedence Clearwater Revival was too busy releasing 3 full albums in 1 year. All killer, no filler. And from the third of those records, Willie and the Poor Boys, came one of the most joyfully toe-tapping tunes in their catalogue, Down on the Corner. Unlike the gritty rage of Fortunate Son, which, fun fact, was released as the double A-side to this track, Down on the Corner showed CCR's more playful side. It tells the story of Willie and the Poor Boys, a fictional street jug band playing on the sidewalk for spare change, a homespun image of music for the people, by the people. But really, Willie and the Poor Boys were just CCR in disguise. John Fogerty, who wrote and produced the song, layered it with jangly Rickenbacker guitar, slapback echo, and that foot-stomping jug band groove that made you feel like you were right there on the corner. Maybe tossing a dime in the hat or clapping along with a bottle in hand. The song peaked at #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and quickly became one of CCR's most recognisable hits. It's been used in countless films, covered by everyone from kids' choirs to pub bands, and still finds its way into jukeboxes and backyard BBQs across America. Down on the corner, out in the street. Down on the Corner may not be CCR's most serious song, but that's what makes it so essential. It reminded the world that rock doesn't always have to shout to be powerful. Sometimes it just has to groove. And in the middle of the chaos that was 1969, it gave people something they desperately needed. 3 minutes of pure front porch joy. 8. Spirit in the Sky, Norman Greenbaum. If there was ever a rock song that felt like it descended from a spaceship wearing cowboy boots and holding a Bible, it's Spirit in the Sky. Released in 1969, this fuzz-drenched gospel rock anthem was the work of Norman Greenbaum, a bearded, laid-back musician from Massachusetts who, fun twist, was Jewish, which makes the whole "Jesus is going to set me up with the Spirit in the Sky" thing all the more fascinating. Greenbaum reportedly got the idea after watching a gospel performance on TV and thought, I could do that. I just need to write a song about Jesus. And then he did, on a napkin, in 15 minutes. What followed was a miracle of rock alchemy. Fuzzed-out guitar riffs, booming hand claps, a thunderous rhythm section, and Greenbaum's laid-back vocals floating somewhere between Sunday service and acid trip. The guitar tone alone sounds like it was dragged through the heavens and then rolled through a garage amp with the knobs all turned to 11. The song hit No. 3 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and No. 1 in the UK, becoming a massive international success. But here's the kicker. Greenbaum never had another hit. Not even close. And he's completely fine with that. He once joked, "One hit is better than none." Spirit in the Sky has since become a licensing dream, featured in over 60 films, TV shows and commercials, from Apollo 13 to Wayne's World 2 to Guardians of the Galaxy. Its instantly recognizable opening riff has made it a cultural touchstone, outliving almost every trend it was born into. Norman Greenbaum may have walked away from the spotlight, but with one cosmic, clapping, fuzz-soaked track, he earned a permanent spot in rock heaven. Because sometimes all you need is one song and a little spirit in the sky. 7. Get Back, The Beatles and Billy Preston. By early 1969, the Beatles weren't exactly getting along. Internal tensions, creative differences, and business headaches were pulling them apart. But for one brief, shining moment, they came together, plugged in, and got back to basics. Get Back was born out of the Let It Be sessions, a project originally designed to bring the band back to their raw, live roots. No overdubs, no studio trickery. Just 4 guys in a room making noise. Well, 5 guys actually. Because joining them on electric piano was Billy Preston, a friend of George Harrison's and a musician so good, the Beatles gave him a co-credit on the track, something they had never done before. Released as a single in April 1969, Get Back was a tight, bluesy rocker built on a spontaneous jam. Its lyrics were partially improvised and, at times, surprisingly biting, especially the early versions that poked fun at British anti-immigration rhetoric. Paul McCartney later softened the tone, but the satirical edge remains. The live rooftop performance of Get Back, captured in the Let It Be film, and later featured prominently in Peter Jackson's Get Back docuseries, became the Beatles' final live show. Performed on the top of Apple Course Building in London, the impromptu concert stopped traffic, confused the police, and gave fans one last glimpse of the Fab Four doing what they did best. Rocking out together, smiling, and being absolutely untouchable. Get Back hit No. 1 in both the UK and the US, and stayed there for 5 weeks. It was the band's 17th number 1 single in America, but somehow still felt fresh, a reminder of where they started. For a band nearing its end, Get Back was more than a song. It was a farewell disguised as a foot-stomping, joyful noise, rock and roll, stripped to the bone, with a wink and a groove. 6. You can't always get what you want. The Rolling Stones. Only the Rolling Stones could open a rock song with a full boys choir and still somehow make it sound like something you'd blast with the windows down. Released in December 1969 on the legendary Let It Bleed album, You Can't Always Get What You Want was the Stones stepping away from swagger and into something bigger and deeper. It opens with the angelic voices of the London Bach Choir, singing in a cathedral-like echo that practically dares you to take it seriously, before Mick Jagger strolls in with a smirk and a story. Written by Jagger and Keith Richards, the song is a slow-building meditation on disappointment, expectation, and, reluctantly, acceptance. From getting the wrong soda at the drugstore to watching society unravel, Mick's delivery walks the line between sarcastic and sincere. It's philosophy with a rock and roll sneer. Musically, it's a genre bender. Gospel vocals, French horn, bluesy guitar, piano, congas. It's like they invited every instrument they could find and told them to find something in common. And somehow they did. The track stretches to over 7 minutes, but never drags. It builds like a sermon you didn't know you needed. Fun fact, the choir had no idea who the Stones were when they recorded their part. They were told it was for a classical pop fusion project. Needless to say, some choir parents were not thrilled when the record came out. You Can't Always Get What You Want became a massive live staple, especially in the Stones' stadium era. The band would draw it out with soaring choruses and gospel-style breakdowns, part concert, part spiritual revival. It's not just a song, it's a rock hymn, one that reminds you, sure, life disappoints, but sometimes you get what you need. 5. No Time. The Guess Who put Canada on the pop map. The Guess Who were already blazing a trail across the border, and No Time, with its leaner production and more urgent tempo, became the definitive take, and the one that rocketed them to the US top 10, peaking at No. 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. Frontman Burton Cummings delivers the lyrics like he's walking away mid-conversation. Soulful, slightly bitter, and totally magnetic. And that unforgettable line? No time left for you. Well song with groove and guts. Behind him, Randy Bachman, yes, the same Bachman who'd later form Bachman-Turner Overdrive, layers bluesy riffs and crisp solos that give the song its gritty backbone. Their chemistry was undeniable, though not eternal. Bachman would leave the band not long after, but not before co-writing some global stage, paving the way for artists like Rush, April Wine, and Alanis Morissette decades later. It wasn't them. 4. Good Times, Bad Times. Led Zeppelin. Every band has a first impression. Led Zeppelin kicked down the door with theirs. Released in January 1969 as the opening track on their self-titled debut album and their very first single, Good Times, Bad Times wasn't just a song. It was a mission statement. A thunderclap, a warning shot, and at just 2 minutes and 46 seconds, it told you everything you needed to know. This band was here to change rock forever. Let's start with the drumming. John Bonham's now legendary use of triplets on a single bass pedal floored drummers everywhere. Many assumed he was using a double kick. He wasn't. Just one pedal, 1 foot, and superhuman skill. And that was only the first 30 seconds. Jimmy Page, fresh from the Yardbirds, laid down riffs that punched like a jackhammer, but still swung with bluesy swagger. Meanwhile, John Paul Jones held it all together with a groovy, melodic bass line that reminded everyone this band wasn't just about power. It had finesse. And then there's Robert Plant. His vocals don't just soar, they wail, strutting between heartbreak and defiance like a man who's already lived 10 lifetimes. At 20 years old, he sounded like a rock god waking up from a nap. Despite being Zeppelin's debut single, Good Times, Bad Times didn't light up the charts. It peaked at 80 on the Billboard Hot 100. But chart numbers couldn't touch its influence. Zeppelin rarely even played it live in full, but when they did, especially during their 2007 reunion show at the O2 Arena, it felt like a time machine firing up. It's fast, it's tight, it's cocky, and it's the sound of 4 musicians throwing down the gauntlet in under 3 minutes. With Good Times, Bad Times, Led Zeppelin didn't ask for your attention. They demanded it, and they got it. 3. Time is Tight. Booker T and the MGs. In a year when rock was growing louder and heavier, Booker T and the MGs took a different route. They got smoother, cooler, and tighter. Time is Tight, released in early 1969, is one of the most effortlessly soulful instrumentals to ever cross over into the mainstream. Originally written for the soundtrack of the film Uptight, the song quickly outgrew the movie and took on a life of its own, becoming a top 10 hit, peaking at No. 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 and cementing itself as one of the band's signature grooves. It opens with that unmistakable Booker T. Jones organ line. Warm, gentle, and perfectly restrained. His phrasing isn't flashy, but it speaks with every note. As the melody unfolds, Steve Cropper's guitar creeps in with buttery chords and pinpoint licks, proving once again why he's one of the most tasteful players in soul and rock history. Holding it all together is the rhythm section from Heaven. Donald Duck Dunn on bass, smooth and unshakable, and Al Jackson Jr., whose drumming is so locked in it could teach a metronome how to groove. Time Is Tight was recorded in two versions, a slower, extended take for the Uptight soundtrack, and a faster, radio-friendly single version, which became the hit. Both versions have their charm, but the groove remains the same, unhurried, deeply human, and impeccably clean. This wasn't background music, it was a masterclass in restraint. In a year filled with noise and distortion, Booker T and the MGs reminded everyone that less can absolutely be more. With Time Is Tight, they didn't shout to be heard. They whispered, and the whole world leaned in. 2. Pinball Wizzard. The Who.
Ever since I was a young boy, I played the silver ball. From Soho down to Brighton, I must
When The Who released Tommy in 1969, they didn't just put out an album. They launched a full-scale rock opera revolution. And its most electrifying anthem? The furiously strummed, oddly heroic saga of a silent arcade messiah, Pinball Wizzard. Dropped as a single in March 1969, Pinball Wizzard introduced the world to Tommy, the deaf, dumb, and blind kid who somehow becomes the world's greatest pinball player. Sounds bizarre, right? It is, but it's also brilliant. Written by Pete Townshend, the song was actually a last-minute addition to Tommy. After playing the album for influential rock critic Nick Cohn, who happened to be a pinball fanatic, Townshend rushed to write the track just to win him over. It worked. Cohn called it a masterpiece. Musically, the song hits with a kind of kinetic energy that's hard to match. Townshend's aggressive acoustic strumming is almost percussive, setting the frantic pace. Roger Daltrey brings pure attitude to the vocals, snarling lines like, "He ain't got no distractions, can't hear no buzzers and bells," with full swagger. And Keith Moon? His drumming is what you'd expect. Utter chaos harnessed into genius. Pinball Wizzard shot to number 19 on the US charts and to 4 in the UK, becoming one of The Who's most enduring tracks. It was famously performed at Woodstock, and its explosive live version became a centerpiece of Live It Leads, still considered one of the greatest live albums of all time. More than just a single, Pinball Wizzard helped redefine what rock music could be. It told a story, created a character, and made Teenage Rebellion feel almost operatic. It wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural pinball machine. And The Who? They tilted the table. 1. Whole Lot of Love. Led Zeppelin. The second Led Zeppelin 2 dropped the needle in 1969. Rock music got heavier and steamier. Its opening track, Whole Lot of Love, wasn't just a song. It was a statement. A wake-up call. A 5-minute earthquake that split the decade right down the middle. Let's start with that riff. The kind you can hum after hearing it once. The kind that makes your face scrunch up involuntarily because it's that dirty. Jimmy Page came up with it in his London flat, plugging into a small amp and unknowingly inventing what would become one of the most iconic guitar lines in history. Then there's Robert Plant, howling his way through the lyrics like he's been possessed by some blues-drenched rock god of lust. His vocals, equal parts moan and roar, redefined what a frontman could sound like. Way down inside, you need love. That wasn't a request. It was a command. And just when you think it's a standard blues rock number, bam! The breakdown. 3 minutes of psychedelic chaos. Panning, echo, reverb, reverse effects, bongos, yelps, moans. It's like falling into a cosmic washing machine. Page created the section using a theremin and extensive tape manipulation, proving that the band wasn't just loud, they were experimental. The song reached No. 4 on the US Billboard Hot 100, making it Led Zeppelin's first major hit in America. It was never released as a single in the UK, because, well, Zeppelin hated singles, but that didn't stop it from becoming a live show centerpiece, often stretching to over 10 minutes with extended solos and call and response battles between Plant and Page. Whole Lot of Love has been sampled, covered, remixed, and blasted in every arena on the planet, but no version hits like the original. This wasn't just a song, it was a new blueprint for rock, louder, looser, lustier. The gloves were off, and Zeppelin had a whole lot of everything to give. So why does 1969 still matter? Because this was the year rock grew teeth. It got louder, it got heavier, and it wasn't afraid to get weird, wild, or wonderfully unpolished. These 10 songs weren't just tracks. They were shockwaves that tore through radio dials, concert halls, and living rooms. They didn't just soundtrack a generation. They pushed it forward. And over 50 years later, yeah, they still hit just as hard. Ready to keep the journey rolling? First, smash that subscribe button so you don't miss a single riff, story, or rock revival we drop. Missed a favourite track from 1969? Drop it in the comments. We might feature it in the next round a few weeks from now. Thanks for tuning in, old souls and young rockers. We'll see you on the next stage. Until then, keep it loud. Keep it classic. And whatever you do, don't lose that rebel rhythm.